Hi, I'm Wheelhouse. Now's the time we do vinyl tag. Vinyl tag, vinyl tag, vinyl tag. 2023. The first one here is favorite release from 2022. Mine's actually not out yet. The song came out, but the rest of the record has yet to be released. So, got my little phone here and we'll play you a bit. If you don't know this one yet already, you should, because Cracker Island, Gorillaz. The record's coming out in February, I think, so another few weeks away. This song just showed up on my recommendations once on the YouTube Music, and I gave it a spin, and it was amazing, and months went by, and you can't even get a single yet, but the song's out there. You can listen. It's amazing, and the rest of the record, I presume, when it comes out, will also be pretty great. There's other singles, but I haven't listened to them yet, because I just keep going back to Cracker Island. I love it that much. Next up is the last band that I saw live, and we're all really cautious about the pandemic still because we're all pretty high-risk individuals at my home, and I don't remember the last show I saw, quite frankly. I do have stuff from the band that I've seen more than any other. Well, there's a couple acts I've seen more than. Like Jonathan Richman, I've seen him a lot. Seen the Flaming Lips a lot. Just about as much as anybody else is Wilco. I have seen Wilco an inordinate number of times because I was a big fan when they started. Like this first record of theirs, the cool OG red pressing from 94, I think it was. This one, yeah, I'm pretty sure it came out in 94. Might have been 95. I'm not sure that the vinyl was released the same time as the CDs. But I've had this since it was new, and yeah, I fashioned my own little cover for it. And I can spin A.M. whenever I like. Good Wilco, not as like a interesting Chicago band. This is Wilco as like what they were right after Uncle Tupelo folded. And this is basically the last Uncle Tupelo album without Jay Farrar. Yeah, it's definitely more like y'all alternative country. And I like this one. Sentimental favorite for me. Wilco A.M. Next up is first record, best record. I don't think out of my whole collection there's any other disc that I feel is quite that situation more than Le Tigre, their original from 1999. I first listened to this disc in like 02 or something. I took a road trip with my partner and a couple of friends out to California, and we spun it, and I was just immediately enraptured with this thing. It's like electro punk awesomeness. They're not just musicians doing cool music, they're just cool folks doing cool, amazing, modern electro-punky stuff. The multimedia artists doing really cool stuff. Like, if I'm going to try to tell you what the best songs are on here, it's tough. I think Slideshow at Free University is my personal fave, but Decepticon is an amazing one, and then Hot Topic is good. What's Your Take on Cassavetes is awesome for anybody who's been to film school, and yeah, it's just so good. Such a good record. It's not long, but there's so many good songs on this thing. If you don't have a copy of Le Tigre's first record, you should try to find one. Sadly, I don't think that it's been pressed again since this era. This is on Mr. Lady Records, I think. I think it was, yeah, Mr. Lady Records. It was the first one, I think, that they put out. I don't know. Le Tigre, the first one. Look for this guy. Try to get some label to re-release it because it's so totally good. It should be much more famous than it is amongst the vinyl community. Absolutely. Electro, punky awesomeness. Nextly, we have the hat trick. I'm a lifelong Trekkie, so it's no surprise that I have actually my family's original copy of the soundtrack to Star Trek The Motion Picture from 1979. This was one of the earliest movies that I ever went to. Like, the first movie I ever saw was Star Wars in 77, and then this came out in 79. It was Paramount's response to Star Wars. Yeah, it was like a really famously difficult production. Paramount just poured money into the Star Trek movie. It just was really slow coming. Like, they kept writing it. The shooting date came up and they were still writing the script. They had like a really great, really experienced director, and the producers were everybody knew what they were doing, but it just was really hard to make everything come together. The first effects company they had hired was just not delivering anything. They had to meet a release date, and they basically went to Jerry Goldsmith, the guy who was scoring the movie, and said, hey, we're going to have to rely on you and like have like the mood of your music inform everybody, like what the narrative stuff happening, what the plot is going to be, and how they should feel about it. Like we just don't have the confidence to have the special effects do the job that everybody expects them to do. Like, your music is going to be a really important part of this whole movie. And so, like any composer, he just said, oh, cool. It's an enormous orchestra that plays in this thing. It was a 90-some piece orchestra doing this. This here is the CD 3-disc version. It's one of the most valuable items in my collection. This is the remastered version. It was an early digital recording too, so that was interesting. But yeah, they took the digital tapes, baked them like you do, and then remastered the score, and it sounds so enormous. Some of the biggest sounds you can ever get out of a stereo could come from the motion picture soundtrack. They had this guy Craig Huxley playing this instrument called a blaster beam, which is like a giant aluminum beam. I think it had 17 strings on it or something like that, which is, yeah, and made these weird noises that basically, yeah, it was very alien sounding. I don't have the cassette. I'm getting the DVD at some point, but what I do have is a little cutout from a cereal box that I've had since I was a little kid. This has been gracing the door of my bathroom ever since about 1999, maybe even earlier, but yeah, before that I found it in like an old Trapper Keeper or something. So yeah, coolness. Star Trek. Woohoo! Coming up next is a record that starts and ends with the same letter. This one was way tougher than I thought it was going to be. So I have here music from the motion picture The Man with the Golden Arm. It's a Frank Sinatra movie, and this is by Elmer Bernstein, the soundtrack, and yeah, a little Decca record. And it's this really cool jazz soundtrack. Cover art by Saul Bass, legendary mid-century artist guy. And it's about a junkie who gets out of jail and tries to start a career as a drummer. But you know that blues riff, the do 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 do, that's in here, but instead of just being like the blues riff that everybody knows, it is kind of like Frankie Machine, the character, his addiction, like just kind of creeping up behind him. Do 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 do. It's interesting. It's a cool score, and I am very happy to show it. Nextly is an artist born in the same year as you. So born in my year, 1975, is Outkast, both Big Boy and Andre 3000 are 1975 babies. And this particular, it's a double album, Speakerboxxx and The Love Below, came out in 03 and is a diamond selling record. Like you hear about gold records and platinum records. This one is diamond. It sold around 5 million copies, and since it's a double album, I bumped that up to twice. So yeah, that takes it more than 10 million copies, and that's diamond. And yeah, Outkast was like pretty much the first southern hip-hop Atlanta-based band, and group, dudes, producers. This record in particular produced really, really nicely. You put this on, it's 4 discs, and the bass just destroys you. The songs themselves are amazing. Like, this is the song that has Hey Ya. It's one of the Andre 3000 ones. Just a good record. I'm very happy and kind of proud to have this one in the collection. I'm trying to build up my hip-hop section, and this one's a really good one to build upon. So yeah, Outkast, Speakerboxxx, The Love Below. Good times. Oh yeah, this thing took 2 years to make. 2 high-quality artists taking 2 years to make a huge album. Yeah, it's something special. Now we have a disc that I've listened to the most, and we gotta give that. This was a tough one. I spun a whole bunch of records at work because that's where I listen to most of my records, and I have to say the honor goes to Lil Bub, famed internet cat. This is the record called Science and Magic. I think it came out in 2015. If you remember Lil Bub, you remember her dude. His name is Mike Brodavsky, and he's actually a recording engineer. He owns a studio in Indiana, and this is what he did for Lil Bub. And just not long ago, I got the cool cat eye vinyl. The record itself is mostly instrumental. You do have Lil Bub's squonks making themselves known here and there on the record, but otherwise it's this lovely, jaunty, just cute, like chiptune synth pop coolness. If you know that Plantasia record from the 70s that you're supposed to play to make your plants grow better, keep your plants happy by playing them Plantasia, this is kind of like that one. And I love it. I spun it a whole bunch. It's a really good one for at work because it just is. Lil Bub, Science and Magic. Yeah, I actually took the liberty of buying an additional 9 copies of this record too, so if anybody out there would like to get some VCLT and you want the Kitty album, I can get you a copy. FYI. No, I can't do the Lil Bub squonks. Insert squonks here. Squonk, 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 squonk. Now we have the artist that you listen to the most, and I think this particular year that honor would have to go to Yola. I discovered Yola in 2022. This is her second record. It's called Stand For Myself. This is just a plain old black vinyl copy. I'm not sure if they even did any other colored copies, but it's such a fantastic record. She's the singer-songwriter, and she makes her records with Dan Auerbach as the producer, and like he writes songs with her, and there's a number of other songwriters represented on this album. It's like a 70s soul R&B classic with just a little tiny bit of like country twang that shows up every now and then, and it's just got bangers on here. The songs that are good on this record are intensely good. And of course, in the back cover, she's on a motorcycle, which is cool enough by itself. But yeah, okay, so here we go. The first side, Barely Alive, is one of my faves and is an amazing track. Then you got Dancing Away in Tears, which is even better. And then it goes to Diamond Studded Shoes, which is another banger. And yeah, Be My Friend is just, it's kind of like a torch song. Yola really slays it on there. Great Divide's pretty good. Starlight, it's cool. And then you flip it all. Yeah, it's got a whole other side after that. Like, this record would be amazing just with side A. And then it comes out with another side. It's so good. If you don't have Yola's Stand For Myself, this is like a must. Really. So you can get them for like 20 or 25 bucks. They're not intensely expensive, but if you do buy this, you will not be disappointed. It is so absolutely, thoroughly, perfectly good. Now we have an Australian band, and I actually bought this for last year's vinyl tag, which I never wound up doing. INXS, 12-inch single of What You Need, which was one of my very favorite songs in like 1987. Well, the song came out in 1985, so I suppose this was one of my favorite songs for like 4 or 5 just straight years. What You Need. This one's on Atlantic, has the cool green and orange label. And of course it's a 12-inch single, so the deal with those is that it's like 1 or 2 songs on the side, sometimes up to 3. And because they're putting so little music on there, there is more distance between all the grooves, which means that there's less distortion. Like even when you're like a really great recording engineer is mastering one of these, cutting it on a lathe, you always have a teeny tiny bit of distortion. That the next groove over has a little bit of wonk that comes through in the groove that's getting cut, and because these things have more vinyl surface area, like, it's not an issue. So 12-inch singles, whether they're at 33 or 45 RPM, they always sound better than anything else. Like if you could get like a master tape and play that somehow, that'd probably sound better. But barring that, like a 12-inch single is going to be the best sounding version of the song. So What You Need, one of my faves. Now we have a surprising record. I'm cheap. On eBay, I started to search for records under $7 from a small number of labels, and yeah, I just check it every now and then, and sometimes I find good stuff. This is an absolutely awesome, fantastic surprise. If you like real deal, old school, super twangy, mega melodic, awesome old country, This is one of the best records you could possibly get. Going Steady with the Blues, sung by George and Earl. It's on Bear Family Records, which is a label that specializes in like old Americana kind of stuff. They're a German record company, and they do good stuff. These guys, it's just a bunch of different sides that they did. I think it was like singles. I'm not sure if they did any LPs back in the day, but it's like from the early 60s or something. Old school country. And it's really, really good. It's so good. I'm so happy I bought this thing. It cost me $10 shipped. Such a lovely surprise. George and Earl, Going Steady with the Blues on Bear Family Records. Look it up. The title track itself on this one is a really, really good one. Going Steady with the Blues. And yeah, if you look up the disc, you won't be disappointed. Unless you don't like real country, like you like this new pop country crap that's been around for like the last 30 years. This is not you. But if you like real country, like the actual music, that is country music, there it is. This is as good as it gets. So, yeah. Nextly is an artist that you're complete on. And you know, I can't really say that I am all complete on this guy because he was around for a long time, did a lot of stuff. But that I mentioned it before with this record, Plantasia, is Mort Garson. And he was a composer based in New York. He worked in the 60s and 70s, and then, of course, in like the 80s, and I'm not sure what all he did after that, but Plantasia is probably his most famous record. This is an edition from End of an Ear. It's an exclusive to them, and it's got a really small number of copies pressed. Oh yeah, also the download code card that comes with this thing. If you take your download card, download the Plantasia album, so you can listen wherever. You can take that card and then plant it in some dirt, and wildflowers will grow, which I think is absolutely amazing. A perfect encapsulation of why this record is great. All kinds of jaunty and amazing. This one is, of course, the cool color. As far as good tracks on this, swinging, no, what was it? Spathiphyllums? Swingin' Spathiphyllums is probably my favorite on this particular record disc. But yeah, complete. Other Mort Garson. This one is his most infamous, Black Mass by Lucifer. Apparently Mort Garson was a bit of an occultist, and yeah, he paid attention to they're creepy and dreary and supernatural, whatever. And this is like, supposedly a record that's about a black mass, like what you might hear, or mood, or something, for Satanists. It's a concept album. That's the concept. If Satan were going to make a synthesizer record and have it be spooky and really groovy and kind of psychedelic, here you go. That's it. Black Mass by Lucifer, but it's actually by Mort Garson, and this one comes on this interesting, yeah, it's good times. This one is also an End of an Ear exclusive, and once again, it's really limited editions, and it was on clearance the last time I looked there. So yeah, if you go to the End of an Ear website, that might be available for like $13. Next up on the Mort Garson thing, we have The Unexplained. The Unexplained. Electronic musical impressions of the occult by Anorexia. And once again, it's Mort Garson composing and releasing a record under not his own name. And it's an End of an Ear exclusive again. This one is, once again, really, really cool vinyl. This is probably my favorite color vinyl out of my whole collection right now. It sort of looks like Saturn. It's this amazing, like, bluey green and rusty orange color, which I think is perfectly groovy. And this, if you're going to get a Mort Garson record, this is probably the one that I would recommend the most. It starts out really strong. Once again, it's, of course, a concept album by Mort Garson. All sorts of synthesizers and lots of good grooves, cool psychedelic stuff. It's good headphone music because you get so many pans, right, left, and left, right, and inside and outside. And yeah, it's cool. Like on the back, you can see his cool old Moog synthesizer. Oh, by the way, you say it Moog, not Moog. You always think it was Robert Moog, rhymes with Vogue. And he was the inventor of that. But here we go, Anorexia. And continuing with Mort Garson is another, well, these, yeah, End of an Ear exclusives, all on clearance. This one is called Didn't You Hear, which is a soundtrack from a movie that came out, I think, 71 or something like that. Once again, cool colored vinyl. Blue and black marbly goodness. This one has some interesting vocal stuff going on, which is not my fave, but it's only in like the titles track and then some other closing track or something. And the rest is all just, yeah, once again, cool synthy goodness from MORT GARSON. And in case you didn't know, you probably have seen these around. Signs of the Zodiac discs. These are, like the music on here, is also by MORT GARSON. If you like astrology, let me know. Maybe I could send these things away. I wouldn't mind them leaving my collection. Lastly with MORT GARSON is this one. This one is a collection fully remastered of miscellaneous stuff from his archive. It was never released in this format before. This is another end of an ear exclusive that comes on cool colored vinyl. And in case you didn't notice before, yes, that is a pentagram, downward facing, made out of flowers and with patch cores for synthesizers and stuff. This one comes in a cool minty green. If you ever wanted a psychedelic synth disco song in your vinyl collection, this is one to buy. There is a track on here where the vocal is a woman singing about the temple of her body, and if you enter my temple, please come with love. But it's this amazing psychedelic disco track, and it's more MORT GARSON, and yeah, it's so good. I love MORT GARSON. MORT GARSON is one of my faves. Now we come to 3 great records released in a row, and I have to admit that vinyl community, I'm really disappointed in y'all. I don't know why. I'm apparently one of the only people who's doing these 3 records, but I mean, come on. It's Bowie's Berlin trilogy, eh? Low, Heroes, and Lodger. They are absolute masterpieces. Bowie, at the height of his powers. Like this is they're basically the records that he made when he was trying to stop doing heroin and all that jazz when he was living in Berlin with Iggy Pop. Like he started this one in France, then moved to Berlin, and he was working at the Hansa studio there, right by the Berlin Wall. The second side of this record is just, it's heavenly cool weirdness. And it's some of my favorite music anywhere. There's a song called Weeping Wall on side 2, which is one of the very few songs where Bowie actually plays all of the instruments himself, sings, not really lyrics, just syllables and stuff. It's him on synthesizers and glockenspiel, and he's so good. And then, of course, everybody knows Heroes. The title track is just intensely good with Robert Fripp doing that amazing guitar and Brian Eno production and all of these, of course. Lodger is the one that some people seem to forget about sometimes, which mystifies me because it's a good one. Let's see. Which tracks on here are some of my favorite? Oh, Fantastic Voyage, which is a good one. And then Assassin is one of my faves. And then, yeah, Red Sails is cool. There's a whole bunch of goodies on here. So yeah, Bowie, the Berlin trilogy. Why doesn't anybody else seem to think that this is worthy of immediate mention? Like, I thought of these immediately. Like, oh, Bowie, everybody's going to be talking about the 3 Bowie records. But no, nobody is. So, damn right I am. Okay, an 80s soundtrack. I struggled at first with this, thinking, I don't really have that many 80s soundtracks. I already talked about the Koyaanisqatsi soundtrack in a previous video. But then I realized that there was really only one answer that I could possibly give for this one. And that, as an Illinois boy who grew up in the 80s, the Blues Brothers. If you haven't seen the movie, it's this absurdist comedy about these 2 guys putting the band back together. Like R&B, soul review, that kind of thing. But anyway, the Blues Brothers, good tracks here. It starts out with She Cut Katie, which is, the Peter Gunn theme. These guys doing the Peter Gunn theme, like, it just kind of feels like home to me. This movie came out in 1980, I think, and yeah, it's like the whole Stax guys here. You got Duck Dunn on bass and Steve Cropper on guitar with Willie Hall on drums, and then you got a good horn section and Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis. Now we're dealing with the sorrowful loss of yet another great artist who had been around forever, and in my case, I'm talking about Ramsey Lewis. He's a piano player, jazz guy. This is his trio. Technically, it wasn't his trio. They never considered him the leader. It was always just three dudes making good music, but the record companies wanted it to be him. And yeah, this one's on Mercury Records, Micro Groove. This one's called Down to Earth, and as far as good tracks on this one, they do Greensleeves, which is this amazing medieval song that's still around, a sorrowful Christmas tune. Like, Ramsey Lewis is known for having a really good groove. The big hit of his was, of course, The In Crowd. They did a cover of The In Crowd. I can't remember who did it originally, because Ramsey Lewis did it so well that I don't care about who did it originally. But yeah, it's like a bass player and the drummer are just laying down super tight groove and coming up with good fills and just everything doing what jazz, bass, and drums do. And Ramsey Lewis is just on there. Like, I usually don't like when piano players use block chords. They're just like, instead of hitting like arpeggios and individual notes, they're just at the same time pressing down chords. That kind of irritates me. But when Ramsey Lewis does it, I don't mind at all, usually. Ramsey Lewis is great. You need to have some Ramsey Lewis in your collection. Even if it's just The In Crowd, get some Ramsey Lewis, and yeah, it's good times. Now we're dealing with a disappointing record. I just got this a couple months ago. On first spin, I was very disappointed in it because it's Yoko Ono, Feeling the Space. Yoko Ono and the Plastic Ono Band. I was expecting this to be her and like the whole... I wanted weirdness from this record of mine. Dropped my needle on it. It was 70s poppy rock stuff, but I spun it again the other day, and I was pleased to note this thing's a second wave feminist record, and it's Yoko Ono saying, men, stop fucking us over. Men, be better to your fellow women. Yeah, second side is the good side here. In particular, women power on this record is really good. Oh, one thing that I never note people saying about Apple Records, which is one of my favorite things about having vinyl. Apple Records, the front side is the exterior of the apple, and then the second side is the sliced. And I just think that's one of the awesomest things. Like, they came up with a generic label that always looks really great no matter what the record is. And I think it's cool. Thanks, Apple Records, and thanks, Yoko Ono. A lot of vinyl community people undoubtedly think that Yoko Ono is evil. She broke up the Beatles or whatever, but no. She is this amazing artist, like what the work she did with Fluxus. She worked with John Cale, Velvet Underground. You know, she's got cred. She hooked up with John Lennon, not because she's some evil succubus, but because she's this amazing artist who inspired him like nobody's business. So yeah, Yoko Ono. I'm warming up to this one, and we'll see how it goes. Besides, it's just got this cover art. How could I not buy it with that cover art? All right, now I think I'm going to talk about my non-vinyl purchase. And since I listen to my records at work, I wanted to come up with like a smaller amplification situation. I bought a turntable, Project Elemental. It has a really small footprint. I have my old Pioneer SX434 receiver there. And that's a pretty small unit altogether, but from this, I just ordered this from DIY Audio, and I have it almost all put together now. This is the Amp Camp Amp Mini. It's a tiny wattage amp, but it's designed by Nelson Pass. He's the guy behind First Watt amplifiers. Basically, his whole philosophy is just to make amps that sound really good at the very first watts that they produce. Like, if you have an amplifier that has a VU meter, something on there that tells you like how much wattage it's consuming to make your music loud, basically you have to go to a certain extent up in watts in order to get like the big bass and like super crisp treble. You have to like get up to a certain level. That's why those loudness buttons exist, is so that you can have good sound at low volumes. And that's not an issue with these, because they're designed to have really high quality sound at the lowest output. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm gonna like physically just build it into like a little walnut stand for my turntable, and yeah, it'll be cool. It'll look sort of like this monolithic turntable thing. I'm excited about it. And yeah, hopefully this will be loud enough. I did kind of get a grail this year, and that like I knew I had to get a copy of this record, and I just never bothered to do that. The Ventures in Space. If you're intrigued by the Ventures, like the 60s surf rock kind of band, as far as instrumental acts go, almost nobody on the planet has ever sold more records than the Ventures. Like, they had their own style of guitar, absolutely amazing musicianship from these guys. And this one is, like, this is the one that's like, it's the concept album they did. It's spacey and it's super amazing. If you want to know my fave tracks, of course, the first one, Out of Limits, is great. But I gotta say, what is it? The Bat is amazing, but He Never Came Back is probably my favorite. It starts out with some of the best drum sound you'll ever find. A scream, which is one of the dorkiest screams you'll ever hear on a record, but at the same time it's raunchy and crunchy. And yeah, these guys made this record when electric effects were just coming into vogue. Like, it's not pedals they're playing through, it's like the studio. They're using overdrive. And they got, like, their Ventures model guitars have these super hot pickups that are just super crispy all the time. They're recorded really well. They got, like, electric organs in there. And it's like tube electronics just moving into solid state and sounding all just so good. This record sounds so amazing. And just everything about it. I love this record so much, and I always have, ever since I first heard it. Yeah, it's on Bolton, and I'll probably get another copy of this soon because this one's in stereo and I want the original mono. But yeah, The Ventures in Space, what can I say? I just love this record. It's all of my being. Right, you might have thought that that last one would have been my space record, but it's not. For that category, we've got the Modern Jazz Quartet, Space. And yeah, it's just your modern jazz quartet record, just like cool, interesting, four-piece jazz. You got piano, bass, drums, and vibes. And with this one, since it's the space theme, they go and like lean really heavy into the vibe part of the vibes, and it's a little bit airier, spacier, spookier than most of their stuff. And yeah, this is one you gotta listen to in its entirety. It's a great mood record. If you want background music that could inspire you to greatness, this one might be a good record to get. And it's on Apple Records again. I think this was actually my first Apple Records record I got. Jazz record, weirdly enough. Now we're moving on to a present. I didn't get any VCLT. I haven't been doing VC stuff long enough to get VCLT, but my partner gave me this remastered reissue of the Bar-Kays Gotta Groove. Mostly instrumental, R&B, Stax, Volt Records amazingness. The Bar-Kays were Otis Redding's band. Like they were touring with him, and they would play on stage with him. You know, if you're a singer, you need a band, and the Bar-Kays were doing that. When Otis Redding had that plane crash up in Madison, and he died, I think 4 of the Bar-Kays also died. And this is the record that they did after that. They regrouped, got a couple other musicians, and eventually put this out. And yeah, it's like that after that loss, that tragedy, they came out and made this intense, hyper groovy record. It is what it looks like it is. It is intense grooves and awesomeness. And I love this thing. This is the last one, which makes me a little sad, but a record from 1973, a record that's 50 years old, and this was just a lucky thrift store buy for me years and years ago. Johnny Hammond's The Prophet. Johnny Hammond is playing an organ on this thing, and it's on Kudu Records, which I thought was kind of cool. It looked so African. I thought, yeah, whatever. It was like one of those $2 records. I couldn't really go wrong. And I only listened to this thing for the first time like a couple of months ago, and it's amazing. His organ playing is fantastic. The other musicians on this record are just intensely good too. Like you've got Maceo Parker on tenor sax on a number of tracks at least. He was like the sax player for James Brown. And then on drums you got Billy Cobham. Bass is Ron Carter, who's pretty much the best bassist who's ever lived. And then Pee Wee Ellis is on electric piano and melodica. He was also, I think, the producer on this record, an arranger, that kind of thing. Cecil Payne is playing baritone saxophone. Yeah, it's just like, if you like organ jazz, this is a great record, and it's a small group with, there's a lot of musicians on this one. It's not a really small band, but it's not a really big band either. And it sounds great. It's good. I could have used this as my surprising record. I was not expecting to like it as much as I do. And yeah, Johnny Hammond, The Prophet. Good times with this one. And you know what? I think that's it. I don't have anything else to talk about for Vinyl Tag 2023. I've been trying to do this video for almost a month, and I'm glad I'm finally putting stuff to tape, as it were. Have a great 2023, vinyl community. I hope you get all the stuff you're looking for, and you don't have to deal with dumb crap from anybody. And how's about let's hope that, yeah, a whole world without war again. I think that's a good thing to hope for always. So we'll see what happens. And let me know if you want a Lil Bub record. Hey, Lil Bub record. I can send out some Lil Bub records. That'll make 2023 good for like another 9 people. So, yeah. No!